What kind of fuckery is this? You made me.
Senator Kamala Harris announced herself as a candidate for the 2020 presidential election, and I feel meh. I know black etiquette implies I should be excited. Like I should be outside my house waving some sort of Kamala Harris flag. I should be out in the streets talking about black girl magic and how sisters get it done regardless. I'm supposed to be thrilled. I'm supposed to show that exhilaration in all the typical ways because if I don't, I get thrown into that pile with the women who allegedly don't support other women. The pile of people labeled as those who say they don't like a woman in power, be it politics or otherwise, just because her womanness makes them uncomfortable. I'll be thrown into the pile with the other crabs in the barrel crabs don't belong in anyway, based on me trying to hold another black person back from her greatness. See, sometimes for some people, being black and a woman makes me obligated to support certain people, art, places, and causes. And just by placing in the melanin and gender categories, there are expectations I follow the unspoken black ass protocol or risk being a sellout of some sort. And I get it. I get that sisters are rarely supported on a large scale by anyone other than other sisters. I get that more often than not, we're all we got. I get that it would be a good look if the majority of sisters in this country all jumped up to support Senator Harris. I get how her blackness and her presence in the Senate and potentially in the highest office is huge. I get how important it is for us to be in these spaces, and I would love to feel excited like a lot of other folks. But I have questions and ponderances. Like, what does Kamala Harris think of prison reform? Is she still on some lock 'em all up type shit, or has she reached the understanding how imperative it is to enforce fair sentencing practices? Does she understand the preschool to prison pipeline? And if she does, is it of concern to her? How is she going to address the reputation she had as the AG? Will she blow off all the black folks' questions, or will she go in head on about her past? And if she goes in, will I like what she says, or will it leave me pissed off? Is she going to acknowledge racial inequities, the fact black lives absolutely matter, and the way the life playing field isn't the same for everyone? Is she willing to take that unpopular stance and risk scaring off pretend allies, or will she talk about all lives mattering as if that's the point? And look, I don't want to be unexcited. I want to smile and cheer and make signs and all the shit. However, I can't do that at the risk of abandoning what's important to me for the sake of a black presence in the whitest of houses. I can't throw my people under the bus just to cheer on a woman whose ideologies just might belong in a barrel with a bunch of crabs. I'm Malikka Rogers, and that's This Week in Fuckery.
Ready?
All right. Hey, boo.
What's up, baby?
What's up? So you have been itching to be on the podcast since season 1.
Yes, I have. I've really been wanting to be on here, and she's finally found this subject she can fit me on. So
I mean, I guess there were other subjects in which you would have fit, but I don't think I took you seriously when you said you wanted to be on the podcast. I thought you didn't really mean that. I thought you were just talking. So, but here we are, and today we are talking Loving While Black. And though I don't normally talk a lot about my super personal parts, I mean, Carl and I are engaged. We've been together a little over 3 years, maybe closer to the 3.5 year mark. And not for him, but definitely for me, even though I have been married before, it really feels like it was a whole different lifetime ago. It was 20 years ago when I married, and I was super young, didn't know what I was doing, what I was thinking, and I'm not so sure he did either. And so this for me is really my first long-term adult relationship, and even the amount of time we've been together is longer than my dating and married time before it was all over for us. So you've had some long-term relationships. I haven't really. Since I divorced, I was like maybe 26, and I've been mostly single since then. I mean, there might have been one or two little half-ass boyfriends in there, but for the most part, I was single and having myself a good time. But you are kind of like a serial monogamist. Like, you get into relationships.
I'm in a relationship. I really don't play when it comes to that. Either I'm going to be with you or I'm not, basically. So, and I was in a long-term relationship, and I was young, so really neither one of us knew what we were doing. We were just being together. So turned out to be like 7.5 years, which is now it sounds like a prison sentence, From like 18 to 25, But it taught me a lot at that time, and just growing up and trying to find that one person to build with. So,
what do you think in that young long-term relationship? What do you think was like the most important takeaway from that?
Just us both growing and becoming adults.
What do you think you learned in terms of what you would apply to your other relationships?
Well, then, it was at that time we had to be together. How we met, we was living with someone at the time, so it came to that point where we almost had to get out. That's when little Brandon was coming along. So Tasha and Brandon needed the extra space, so we found us a little apartment and we just made it work. We were both working. We were young and we were already kind of more mature than the people at our age, so we just stuck together for a while.
So your takeaway was learning how to stick with your partner?
Yeah.
Even if you have some challenges, figuring out together how to
make it work. Yeah.
Work out those challenges.
This is what we got to do, so this is how it's going to happen.
That's cool. So now in this relationship, and even in thinking of any other relationships you've been in, what have you learned about dealing with conflict over time? I know for me, it is still, somewhat of a learning process, but I do think having been married and divorced, and then having dated, people over the years, I don't always get it right, but I definitely think I know a little better than I used to in terms of sometimes I just have to shut up. Not because I'm wrong or not because I don't have the right to feel the way I feel, but because in that moment, I don't have anything nice or kind to say. I'm past the point of being able to, reasonably say how I feel. And so I'm thinking, okay, I don't want to be hurtful. I just want to get my point across. So maybe I better just shut up and talk about this in an hour or in a day or, whatever.
Yeah.
So I know that's one of the things that I've learned, and I don't always get it right, but I am, I do work on that. Yeah. What about for you? How do you feel in terms of your approach to conflict?
Well, I know for one thing, when you're in a relationship, especially when you live with someone, if there's a conflict, you can't run from it.
True.
You can't run and hide from it because it's going to be there. So
right.
Eventually, you have to talk about it. And me, sometimes I'd rather wait to talk about it. Because, like you said, you don't want to say something at the wrong time.
Right.
And if both people are upset, you're going to end up yelling, and it's going to end up into an argument. Sometimes you hate that about me. But that's my whole thing. It's I don't want to talk about it now because you're upset, I'm upset, and nothing... no point is going to get proved right now, or we're not going to listen to what we're talking about. So I'll just be quiet and let you get it out. and I'll deal with it later. You know, and half the time I probably won't even say nothing because I'm really not, you know, I'm so nonchalant about everything, and I let pretty much everything go by. So
And
nothing
that's
really
why
gets
I
to
want
me.
to cut you sometimes.
So yeah, but that's the whole thing. Is like if I'm mad, I don't want to say anything wrong, you know, because I
Right.
can't say some dumb shit, and
You can't take it back.
Yeah, and I can't take it
You
back.
can
and then,
apologize, but you can't take it back.
I'd rather you be looking at me like, why he ain't talking to me, instead of this nigga done said, you know. So
I mean, I do understand that. And I just know for us, as far as one of our weak areas is when that conflict comes up. I think we're getting better over time, but sometimes when the conflicts come up and somebody's mad, I'm mad, you're mad, whatever it is, we don't always communicate in a way that says, I'm mad, but I'm gonna come back in an hour, you know, or I'm mad, but we gonna table this until I can get some kind words until I can find some kind of decent way to communicate this. I mean, I know for you, you'll just shut down. But if you say,
stupid,
I'm gonna shut down now because I'm about to start being rude about the shit, then at least I can say, okay, I got you. Because I know how that is.
But then at the same time, it's like, I don't want to be like, let me stop before I say something stupid. And then you might be to the point where you're like, what you got to say?
No, you know? No. I mean, I think at this point, I understand we say things to hurt the other person, and not just the two of us. This is just how people in general, whether they're in a relationship, whether it's a sibling, a friend, whatever it is, when people who love each other start funking, sometimes they feel so betrayed by the conflict that they start trying to think of ways to be hurtful, because now they've gone beyond being upset about the actual thing that happened, and they've gone into how dare you mode. And so that's when it turns into, what kind of hurtful shit can I say?
Let me see who can say the dumbest shit.
Right.
Let me see who can really whose knife is the deepest, really.
Exactly.
You know, it's like, I want to stab you, but I can't really hurt you, but I can hurt you with words. So let me see how deep I can get under your skin with some hurtful words.
So
and I can get real hurtful with words. That's why I be quiet.
I can too. And so I think that's why if you said, I'm shutting this down right now, and I hear you, I know you're mad, I'm mad too. I'm going to talk to you in about an hour. Or it's Monday, I'm going to talk to you Tuesday because I ain't got it right now. Yeah. At least, having been through what we've been through in our years together, I wouldn't even be like, oh, what you got to say? I think I'd be like, oh, okay. Because I don't want no nasty stuff to come out of our mouths. Not that kind of nasty stuff. Right. So, in terms of relationships, romantic relationships, what do you use as a model? Have you just sort of developed your own ideas about how love works, based on your own preferences, your past experiences in relationships, or is it a mix of that and looking at, relationships you respect? And sort of using your own experiences combined with how those people interact and figuring out how to love, because even that's somewhat of a learning process, I think.
Yeah, it is. And I think I took a little bit of each aspect. For one, my mom and dad, they were together, but the love, I probably missed that part, so I never really had that mom and dad to look up to, like, ooh, I want to have a relationship like that, Nobody wanted a relationship like that one. So, so when I grew up, like a lot of my friends who had parents that were married, I would be like, okay, that's how it's supposed to go, like the dad works, the mom works, whatever, and they're eating dinner at a certain time, all that type of stuff. And then I took stuff like that, and then my relationship that I was in forever, so that kind of developed how love was supposed to work, because we we learned how to love each other. We learned how to grow up in a relationship and being young. And also my friends that are married now and were married when I was younger and like, damn, y'all still together? You know, like Tasha and Solomon. And I'm like, that's a relationship I look up to. You know, like they had their problems, but they stuck it out, you know, and they're like, they love everything that comes with all of the whole, you know, being in a relationship, all of the problems, but they stuck together, you know, and that's like one of my favorite relationships. And I'm like, that's dope, you know, because no relationship is perfect.
Right.
You know, so just learning how to love, you have to take a little bit of, it's just like life, you know, you can have your idea of it, but you can't just have the picture set in your head. You know, you have to get to that point by taking little pieces from here and there and, you know, and figuring out and finding that person that's willing to, you know, either take the time with you to get to that point, or they have the same idea in life, you know, to where we're going to figure out how it's really supposed to go together.
I think for me, as I got older, my ideas of love and what I wanted and how I needed a love relationship I'm in to look, those ideas for me came a little bit later, where I developed for myself using my life experience and sometimes observing relationships I respect, right? But when I was younger and got married really young, all I had at that point was, you know, like religious ideology, like what I learned in church and, you know, biblical principles being taught. And so that because I was only really operating on that, I think in that marriage, what I was doing was more performative. It wasn't some sort of heartfelt, instinctual thing of, this is how I feel like I should treat this man. This is how I feel I should communicate with this man.
You were doing it because this is how you're supposed to do it.
That's what I'm supposed to do. This is what a wife does. Exactly. And so I was performing wifehood as opposed to
being a woman,
being a wife. Yeah.
and
being a friend. You know what I mean? So I think a lot of that contributed to the demise of the relationship. And I think ultimately we probably were just too different for each other anyway. But I do think we would have lasted longer. He had his issues too, but I think just on my end, my part in it, I think maybe it would have lasted longer had I known and understood then that I had the right to apply my own ideas to my relationship, that it didn't have to go based on what Reverend so-and-so said or Sister so-and-so said. I think ultimately that did some damage and caused him to be resentful, you know, and I would be like adamant, like, oh no, it can't go like this because the Bible said blah, blah, you know, and to me at that point, because that was really all I knew, I felt like, of course I'm right. Like, this is the Bible. It's Jesus. Jesus said this right, you know. And so I think, and that's not knocking religion or whatever. I'm just saying I think it didn't occur to me to use my brain, to use my common sense and apply that to my relationship and apply what I knew about him and who I knew him to be to how I acted in our relationship. So instead, like I said, I'm performing something and he's looking at me like, I'm sorry, who are you? Like,
because it's not you, you know, that's like,
I don't know who you
like
are.
And,
right.
You would have been doing some stuff that you don't do now and being all sort of obedient, you know, not being a person that you are.
Right.
I'll be looking at you sideways because I'm like, that's not you, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, but.
You know, interestingly, at that time, it was me, though. I mean, I think, I was sort of independent and all of that but.
That's the idea that you had that you were supposed to be. That's not who you were, you know.
Well, I didn't know who I was yet. At that point, I didn't know. We were super young. So, you know, in that journey of kind of figuring out who you are and how you love and what you think love is for you, when you're in a moment of confusion or, I'm not sure how to take this next step. What should I do? How should I handle this situation? Do you seek outside help? And if you do, is it through other people? Is it, I don't know, I go to Google? Is it I go in a chat room on Facebook? Is it I call up some people who've been married? Is it I ask older people I know? How do you deal with getting help or getting ideas or whatever? Do you just sit and wait for something to happen, or do you
like trying to get through an issue in a relationship, or
well, not necessarily an issue, but sometimes, it could be a conflict, but it doesn't always necessarily have to be some kind of conflict-based matter. It might just be, like, for example, we want to buy a house post-marriage, right? And if you were thinking, oh, shit, I can't get my savings to quite go the way I want them to. I know that Malikka and I agreed we're going to do blah, blah, blah. It looked like she got her shit, but I ain't got my shit. And I don't even know how to handle it, or should I go to her and say that? Or maybe I should ask somebody, when you're in a situation like that, or even if it is a situation where we're beefing and you're like, I don't even know how to respond to this. Where do you go outside of yourself, or do you ever go outside of yourself and, get some other perspectives?
It's probably two people.
So you you go to some friends and family or whoever.
Yeah, but it's really rare that I do, open up to people, but it's like two people, either my Uncle Eddie or either Keisha. Because those two people, if I talk to them about something, they know it's serious. Mm-hmm. They're not going to sit there and be trying to nitpick at the problem. They're going to actually sit there and listen and set me straight, kind of keep me grounded, Mm-hmm. So that's about it. But usually I'll try to figure it out myself, just try to wing it, because that's how I do mostly everything in my life. I've been just winging it through life for the last 39 years, pretty much, since I've been here. And I think it's been going good. It led me to you. That's a good thing. So, but I do go to a couple people, but it's very rare. Or either my Arthur, because my best friend, because he's been there. He's married. He has a wife that has previous kids. He has previous kids. So. And they're married, so he's going through way more than I have, so he can, and he's a down to earth person,
Mm-hmm.
So he won't sit there and nitpick. He'll be like, nah, he'll probably be drunk or whatever, but he'll still be, he'll still let me know that basically you have to suck it up, and try to figure out how to make it work, and not put everything out there, because I thought they have, I think they have a good relationship, but he still look at me like, nah, it ain't, it ain't all peaches and cream, homie,
it never is.
But we make it work, and, people like that. So it is a few people that I go to, but it's very rare that
you step outside yourself.
I step out,
And, it's interesting because I'm very different in that way, where I am consistently seeking help outside of myself. Like I'm gonna read, I'm gonna Google,
you research everything.
I'm gonna
That's been you
I am like that.
You came out with a typewriter, I came out with a bike and some marbles. You came out serious, so
I am very I am the type to try to figure out where I can read something, find out something, learn something to address whatever it is. I am very much like that. And I do talk to friends sometimes, family members, people whose judgment I trust, people whose way of loving and communicating I respect, because I'm not going to ask everybody.
Yeah.
Some people I love dearly, but I wouldn't ask them shit about
they got a trash relationship.
And they might even be in a relationship and it might even have lasted a really long time, but their version of happy is not my version of happy, and so I'll be looking at it like, nah, I don't want you to help me.
Like the weed dealer and the girl that braids hair, and they think they're a power couple. I'm not gonna go to. I might go to them because
I might go to them about some game.
Yeah, they might know. They know how to make it work.
I would ask them about something.
No, real.
But if I respected the way they loved, and if I could appreciate their approach to each other and their communication, what they do to make money wouldn't be shit to me. But you know, in terms of, I know people who, I mean, they're, you know, traditionally successful in the professional realm, but just the way they maybe talk to each other, the way they interact with each other, I look at it and it's something that I don't want. So that's not who I'm going to go to. But if I trust
you have to value their
people and I have a good feeling about the way they work together as a couple, then I definitely will ask those people. I'm not in any relationship groups in social media, but were I in a group like that, I would ask certain questions of certain people without really telling my business, because again, I am somewhat private. So I'm, you know, I would keep it general. I wouldn't be like, oh, last night Carl said this, and then I said this, and I just thought I'd tell this room of 500 people what went down. It's, you know, I'm definitely not that person, but I will fill people out and ask questions of people whose knowledge base I trust. So I'm definitely always, and I don't want to limit my interactions with you or anybody I have a relationship with that's not romantic, like any of my friends or any of my work relationships or whatever the case. I don't want to limit those relationships to only what I know, because I don't know everything. So I'll be, you know, communicating, and if I refuse to seek help anywhere else, then I'm only limited to what I know. So if there's something I don't know, I'm not going to be able to enact that. But if I seek something outside of myself, seek someone or something, some resource outside of myself, then I feel like then I'm privy to more perspectives, I guess I'm thinking.
You have to try every avenue. You know, you can't just have that one. You have to try every avenue. Right. Because, like, making a relationship is like it's a project, you know, so you can't just go to one person all the time, you know, with this one idea, because you're only going to get that one idea and that one perspective. So you do need more outlets, or, you know, just try to figure it out with your mate, you know, try to figure it out with them and see how it goes, but you can't really just go. I wouldn't recommend just going to having that one go-to person, because you don't want it's no Mr. Miyagi relationship building.
Exactly. Right. Everything's not a wax on, wax off situation. So, as a child, did you ever think about being married or being in a long-term relationship as a kid?
Of course.
Definitely.
Yes, that's why I am the way I am, because I wanted that. I wanted that white picket fence. I wanted that. I didn't have that. I came from the hood. And my mom and dad, we lived in apartments. You know, I wanted that. You know, I wanted the opposite of what I had. You know, as growing up, I wanted everything I thought I was supposed to have. You know, so and. Of course I wanted that, you know, and I still want it, and I have the person with me now. Now we just have to get it and achieve those dreams and goals and all that type of stuff. But of course I wanted that, and, you know, it shouldn't be weird, because the way I was raised, seeing, you know, basically in a predominantly negative relationship, I shouldn't want, you know, to be happy. I should, you know, most people gravitate toward what they see. Right. You know, so I've never really been violent towards, you know, the person I want. It's like I wanted to cherish that person. You know, it's like, I guess I was a mama's boy, and it's like I always want to get that woman and treat her the way my mom should have been treated, you know? Right. So,
I'm thinking when I was young, I didn't, a lot of women I know, from the time they were little, they were envisioning their weddings, and I want to get married and have X many kids, this many boys, this many girls. And I was never thinking of any of that. I know for sure as a kid, I just assumed I would be married, right? And I assumed I would have at least one kid. But I didn't actively think about how I wanted it to go down.
Yeah, like,
I just assumed it would happen. Yeah, because it just seemed like the normal course of life to me. I just thought, well, like people get older, then they meet somebody and they get married, they have children.
You came out with a typewriter.
You're right. I did.
Life supposed to be.
I was born like 52 years old, and so I just assumed it would happen. And it's so interesting to me because my life is not anything like I assumed it would happen as a kid. And I mean, I think most of us can say that, but even as children, sometimes
it's not even close to what you thought.
It's not even close. I'm 44. I don't have any children. Any biological, my child passed away, so I don't have any biological children. I'm not ever going to have any biological children, and I'm not bothered by that. I purposely made it so that there will be no more biological children.
You don't have that husband.
Right. I'm not married yet. But I'm divorced, so that's weird, right? Yeah. And then, not only was I divorced, I mean, we split, like almost 18 years ago, but, it is a super long time, but, I thought even then, I'm sure I'll get married again. I wasn't actively seeking it, but I just assumed once again. That's what people do. They get divorced. We're really young, and they'll probably get married again. By the time I'm 30, I bet. Nah, blood. Like, I'm 44.
And that wasn't something when I met you or when I was single, whatever. That was never something I was looking for. It was kind of like, okay, eventually I probably will find a wife. But after a while, it was like, all right, if I'm single and I'm just dating people, I'm cool with that, As long as I'm taking care of my daughter, she cool. I'm cool with that.
Right.
And then when I met you, it was like, something just clicked and was like, dog, if you don't put a ring on it, this might be one of the dumbest moves you've ever made in life. And I made some dumb decisions, and that was one of them that I couldn't let slide. I was like, you know what? I'm going to have to do it. Let me go and check my credit, see what I can get. You know what I'm saying? And make this happen, but it's not like I was looking for it,
Right.
It's not like I was looking for a mother figure for my child because I had that,
Sure.
I always took care of her. So just meeting you and everything that started flowing, it was strange. It was like, okay, I guess this is how it's supposed to go. It's like, okay, now, okay, all these years later, I guess I found that one that shows you how a relationship is really supposed to go. And we both figured it out at the same time, really, because we both came into this relationship like, okay, whatever happens, pretty much. And we realized that we love each other, and we're both cool, we make things work, and we were on that mindset of trying to, if anything, I'm going to find that person and we can build together. We're not, like, you don't have to come to the table with everything.
Right.
But come to the table, at least a hammer, you know what I'm saying?
Right, have something.
I got a nail,
right.
You know what I'm saying? We could start from scratch. And everybody looks at our relationship like we're a power couple, but we be struggling, you know what I'm saying? Like,
listen,
and like,
what you know about a $2.42 checking balance?
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah, but it's like we just make it. We met and we made it work. Actually, I don't even think we had to make it work because it just kind of flowed. Like I
think
said.
It does just work. It's imperfect, but it does work. And our relationship was a very the start of it was just a very natural progression. Nobody was forcing anything.
Yeah, I wasn't just
nobody
for
was
the cakes. Like, okay, you want to wait? I'm cool with that.
It was a very natural progression, and it wasn't like a whole bunch of infatuation at first and then we just have to be together. Oh God, whatever will I do without you? We didn't have that. We just had a really natural, this is fun. We have a good time together. So always our relationship was just very mellowed out. And so I think because of that, I think that's kind of what helps to sustain it, aside from the actual work we put in, because all relationships are work relationships, romantic relationships, platonic friendships. Every relationship requires work, effort from everybody. But
I think the biggest part for both of us was learning how to work with somebody else, because we're both sort of independent people,
right?
And even though I was fresh out of a relationship, but that was a real brief relationship, and I haven't really been in a real relationship in a long time, you know. So that was probably the hardest part, is learning how to work with somebody and give a little bit more.
The compromise. Sometimes that's definitely challenging.
Because you're so used to doing, especially like when you live by yourself and you're so used to taking care of yourself. Right. It's hard to find that person. And then sometimes you got to give a little bit, okay, let me give a little rope, or let me, but we're both going through that, and, we're still going through it. But, it still happens even 3.5 years later, but it's still like, damn, I'm so used to doing it this way.
Sure.
It'd be little things.
And it happens less often where it's an issue, but, I mean, it definitely is a transition of going from, I do what I want. Yeah.
Like me, to I want to go out and do hood rat stuff with my friends. I can't. I can't do that.
Well, you can go out and do hood rat stuff with your friends, but you got to have consideration.
Yeah, I have to have better consideration.
Right.
For the person I'm with.
And I think especially for you as a parent and as a primarily single parent, you were really used to. Not only do I do what I want, but I make all these decisions for this kid and myself. So I don't need to compromise with anybody. And I know for me...
Because I'm the rock.
Right. And for me, I was just like, shit, I've been single 15, 16 years. I do what I want.
Yeah. And you grown.
Then,
you're grown as hell.
Right. So. Us moving together. And then suddenly it's like, wait a minute. This ain't just my space. Yeah. This is our space. Okay, I can't just always do exactly what I want, because I had to have some consideration for everybody else here. I can't just be thinking of myself. So coming to drawing those conclusions sometimes is a challenge. It's like a learning curve. But it's good. I mean,
at the same time about that, we weren't really both needy and demanding people. We were used to doing things our way, but we weren't like needing and demanding to where it had to be this way. We were just used to doing things our certain way. Going to where like, I thought I'd move in and it would be like, oh, boom, 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 it has to be this way. Like little things, like keeping the toilet seat down, I had to get used to that. Sure. That was probably the hardest thing, I pissed and left the top lid up, She's like, put it down before you flush. But
because gross.
I didn't think about that. I'm a man, like you said, Like I thought I was doing a great job raising my daughter. I was. But when I moved in with you, it brought out a different aspect of how I was raising her, like you was like, oh, you've been raised by a wolf, and basically, she has, because I've been winging it through life,
We're all winging it, babe.
I've been winging it through life, so I've been dragging this baby with me, like, baby, we gonna get there somehow, we gonna make it, baby, but daddy ain't gonna fail you, so, and then when we met, it meshed, because you weren't really looking to be that mother figure, you weren't looking for all that extra stuff. It just happened, Right. And my daughter loves it. She's growing and she's maturing, and I'm seeing a whole different side of her that's there that wouldn't be there if I didn't find a person like you. Because she was like me. She was real reserved, and, she would keep things to herself. She wasn't really outspoken. She was sort of shy. But now, you can't tell Amari shit, and I love it, she stands up for herself, she advocates for herself, she looks out for others, what she did, but now it's even to a stronger point, So I was like, okay, and once that started happening, once I started seeing y'all bond come together, that's like, okay, this is gonna work, because it's always been me and my daughter. So now that I found someone that okay, I don't have to worry about this woman killing my child and mistreating her.
Right.
Even though, it was a little threats of kicking her down the stairs, but that's life. Like, she gonna have to know, there's lines and rules. And
I was just gonna punt her. I mean, I'm sure
and she was going through the awkward stage
landed on something soft.
She went through the little awkward stage of actually having somebody that's around, because she's seen me in those brief relationships.
Right.
Since I have been a single dad, she's seen all the little halfway girlfriends.
Right.
So she was like, okay, this one's gonna be around, And when she got here, you were brand new.
Right.
So I don't know this woman. This ain't nobody I know.
Right.
This ain't nobody's cousin. This ain't nobody's auntie. Because that's how my other relationships were people that I knew through somebody.
Some people she'd usually seen
somebody she
before,
was used to, or she knew of, or heard their name, and she was like, who the hell is a Malikka? So Malikka, who would name their kid that? But it works, and now I know if something don't happen, my child will probably pick my fiance over dad. Because the relationship just turned out, it's when you have I hate to ramble, but when you have a kid and you go into a relationship, it should never be about what you want. Yeah. It should never be about what you want in a relationship, because your kid's going to be forgotten about. A lot of people forget that. That's one thing I thought about, was that the person I get with and my child has to be cool. I don't care how happy this person makes me feel. I don't care what they're buying me. If they're not treating my kid better than they're treating me, I don't want to deal with you. You know what I'm saying? Don't halfway deal with my child,
Right.
Either you'll be all the way, and you can treat me like halfway, but you better give your all to my child, because you can't play with me. That's my baby,
Right.
And that developed with you guys. I didn't have to ask for that,
Yeah.
It's not something I came to the table like, oh, you gotta. It was something that I kind of, this would be dope, and that's how I believe the relationship should be, because I don't want any relationship, no problems in our relationship based off of you and my child's relationship.
Right.
Because a lot of relationships go through that issue and over having to pick their kid, basically, and their mate. And I don't want that. I would rather y'all kick me out.
Right.
If I'm acting up, I got to sleep downstairs or on the patio. So that's one great. It's a lot of great aspects to this relationship, but that's one of the main ones that I enjoy. And I didn't have to look for that. I wasn't out there flipping over girlfriends looking for stepmamas. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
It just happened.
Right.
And you weren't looking for a dude with a kid. Most definitely you weren't, because you were
wasn't.
Grown. You're trying to go out.
Right.
You're like, I gotta what?
Kid. Homework.
Yeah.
What you talking about? But I mean, I will say that it has been my pleasure to pour into that kid, and she's a really cool kid. And she was raised well. Even though she was raised by a wolf, she was raised by a well-behaved, well-meaning wolf. Not just any kind of wolf.
Eat off the ground.
Not the kind of wolf who was out there with the 3 little pigs. Not that kind of wolf. It was a good wolf. So she's a good kid. But, yeah, it has been my pleasure, because all kids are not a pleasure. And but she is. Even the times I thought about punting her down the stairs. She's still in the midst.
Maybe I was when I was raising her. Maybe I was like, you gotta be able to at least find me a wife. You can't be so misbehaving to where I gotta.
Don't act up. Don't have daddy out here single long term.
Have your head with the silver cap on your teeth. Stand up straight.
Once the kid gets a silver cap, they bad. They gonna be bad at least until 15, because that's caps on your teeth that are silver. That's a guarantee that you're gonna act the fuck up.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, babe, I thank you for popping in today with us to talk about our black ass love, and I'm glad you were interested in that. I really listened to you this time. Thank you.
Tackling Tomfoolery is produced by Bren Inman for Square People Media. For more information or for comments and conversation, find us on the web at tacklingtomfoolery.org, the Tackling Tomfoolery podcast on Facebook, Tackling Tomfoolery on Twitter, and Tackling Tomfool on Instagram. To subscribe to the podcast, go to Stitcher, Apple Podcast, or SoundCloud, and please make sure you review the show because it helps others find us. If you'd like to contact us, email us at tacklingtomfoolery@gmail.com or leave us a voicemail at 916-573-1065 and let us know what tomfoolery you're tackling. You can also donate to the podcast via Patreon at patreon.com/tacklingtomfoolery. Let's get it.